Hello you guys, it's Nice Star for Queer's Cat. Today I'd like to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. This video will pretty much be me, I guess, venting, I don't know. But yeah. Everyone, whether they're 3 years old or a 70-year-old CEO of a corporation, everyone has to adapt to their environment, and that adapting can involve it does involve many different things, some of which are social adaptations. So regardless of whether it's adapting to social expectations, socially defined taboos and norms, social shaming even, all of that stuff everyone has to deal with in their life at some point or another, or throughout their life. You may or may not know that I recently moved from Australia back to my mom's house in America. In Australia, I had a lot of freedom. I could do pretty much whatever I wanted as long as it didn't get me fired from my job or something. So yeah, I was conforming to stuff that wouldn't get me fired from my job back then. But back in America, back in my mom's house, I have even less freedom now. For example, my mom absolutely abhors this. So, out of respect for her, and because I can't afford to have a falling out with her right now because I have nowhere else to go, I have to conform to her wishes and keep this hidden whenever she's around, which is pretty much all the time. I'm also not out to my family, and I can't come out. That's not an option for me right now. So I also have to conform to the assumptions of my family and society that I am female, my gender is female, because, that's what they assume. Lately, I've been thinking about how much more I will have to, compromise on myself, how much more I will have to conform to things if I get one of the jobs that I'm applying for. You may or may not know that I am applying for jobs left and right abroad in Asia, mostly focusing in Asia right now. And the things that I have to conform to in America are one thing. The things that I had to conform to in Australia were another thing. But going to a conservative country and having your life in that country completely in the hands of your employer, who granted your visa and who is the only financial leg that you have to stand on in that country, having your life completely, in that person's hands pretty much, you really can't afford to not conform to things, to their standards and stuff like that. And of course, I knew that, before I decided that I wanted to go work abroad again. I mean, I've done it before. I've lived in Japan, Australia. I've been in countries under similar circumstances. But the person that I am now isn't the person I was back then. So even though I've already given this thought in the past, I have to reevaluate this now, because things are pretty different now, it feels like. So one example of how living abroad and in my visa situation, how that will affect how I have to conform to society or to my employer's wishes. I've been wanting to cut my hair really short, or at least shave the sides of my head into some, I don't know, dread, like mohawk. But since I'm hoping to live in Asia somewhere, that is now absolutely 100% out of the question. I mean, even if I wanted to get a job here in America, having that kind of hairstyle would may not even fly here, because I'm trying to get into education, teaching children. In Asia, that kind of hair, absolutely no go. So, yeah. And on top of that, I'm actually going to need the length of my hair because in Asia, in general, piercings are a very big thing, especially for a teacher who's going to be working with children. So, right now my lobes are small, but I intend to stretch them bigger, and there's the problem of my industrial. This industrial in Japan or Korea, for example, absolutely no. So, yeah, many schools in Asia, especially in Japan and Korea, they expect teachers not to have their piercings visible or their tattoos visible at all while at work. I know of schools who don't even allow the female staff to wear earrings in their lobes because there's a rule that students can't have their ears pierced, so they kind of carry that over to the staff as well. Staff aren't allowed to have earrings in their ears, even if they're a female, which is more commonly accepted in Western countries. So, because I absolutely refuse to take my industrial out, I'm just going to have to keep it hidden underneath my hair. And if you live in a rural town, which if I live in Japan or Korea, I more than likely will, it's not just that you have to keep your piercings hidden at work. The school, whether they say it or not, won't want you to show your piercings or your tattoos outside of work either, because even when you aren't at the school, schools feel that you still represent them. And so they don't want a teacher going around with like a septum and industrial and stuff because they feel like that reflects badly on the school. And if you live in a small town, chances are you're going to run into your students or parents while you're at the grocery store or something, and if they see stuff, it ain't going to be kept quiet. No. So yeah, that's one major compromise, one major way that I'm going to have to conform in living in those countries. I'm going to have to keep certain things about me hidden. And yeah, while that sucks, I really want the job, so what can you do? Sadly. And on top of the whole piercings thing, I wonder what some schools would think about a supposed female teacher coming to work every day in a dress shirt, dress slacks, and a tie. I mean, some schools, I'm sure they probably wouldn't have a problem with it. They just see it as my fashion statement. But in certain countries, certain schools, certain people, I wonder. And yeah, I'm not just applying to places like Korea and Japan. I'm also applying to Hong Kong, Singapore, if I get desperate enough, Thailand, Taiwan. And each of these countries are different. The culture, the expectations, things in these countries are very different. People tend to make the assumption that there's a lot of commonality between countries in Asia, and in some regards there may be, but in other ways they're very, very different. Like, especially when it comes to work ethics and expectations and stuff like that. So all of this is something that I'm very much thinking about right now. I have thought about in the past, but like I said, I have to think about it even more now. For example, I've seen job listings in places like Russia, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Turkey, and there are lots of jobs in these countries, and I feel like jobs in those countries are completely off limits to me because of who I am. And in the past, when I went to Japan, I didn't identify as queer at all. I didn't think about those kinds of things back then. And so now that I do identify as queer, particularly genderqueer or neutral, I feel like, yeah, there's a lot more on my shoulders now going abroad this time compared to when I went abroad years ago. And yeah, it's interesting, a lot to think about for sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always been one who's had issue with conforming to other people's shit. But this is different now. I mean, I can't really explain. It feels like it's on a much more fundamental level than it ever has been in the past. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about for this week. Sorry if it's like, I don't know, talked about stuff that maybe I'm sure people can relate to on some level or another. But yeah, my mind's really on culture, expectations, society, living abroad kind of stuff right now. Because I'm applying to jobs left and right, getting interviews left and right, and hopefully something will happen soon. Hopefully I won't be stuck in Vegas for much longer. Fingers crossed. But yeah, if you guys have anything to comment, please do. I haven't been updating as frequently as usual because someone's always in the house lately and I can't do these videos without privacy, so. But anyways, I'll see you guys sometime, hopefully in the next week. Bye.